Lyndon Forbes Samson Bonham, well known as Roger, master politician, and was an outstanding statesman. He was a great leader, and our hero, you understand. That's why we remember Lyndon Forbes Bonham.
Good. Yeah, morning viewers, I want to really welcome you once again to this program, The State of the Nation, coming to you through the kind compliments of the Forbes Bonham Foundation. You know, we have done a number of programs here on this channel in relation to Forbes Bonham. We have done Forbes Bonham and foreign policy, Forbes Bonham and youth. We have also done programs on Forbes Bonham and the non-aligned movement. Today we have done a program before on education, but bearing in mind only recently the Ministry of Education has announced that they will be having a commission of inquiry to have a review of the education system in Guyana. I think it's only important that we try to address that topic once again. You would recall that Forbes Bonham was the first Minister of Education in this country. He was also the first Prime Minister and then the first Executive President of Guyana. Also, he has the distinction of being the Caribbean man of the 20th century. All these accolades is as a result of very sterling quality of the man. But for education today, I have with me in the studio an education specialist, Dr. Clarence Perry. Dr. Perry has a wide range of experience on education issues, education policy, and those matters. In fact, he has served in so many different capacities in Guyana. He was also head of NSERD. He served as lecturer, consultant for the various universities on matters of education. And since we're going to be looking at education today, bearing in mind that the government will be having a review of the policy, a commission of inquiry has been a commission has been set up to review the education system. I think it's only appropriate that I ask Dr. Perry straight up front, what are your views on the need? First of all, what I would like to look at, Forbes Bonham he has introduced a number of innovations on education in this country. There were a number of other kind of ministers of education that have fashioned various policy approaches in relation to bringing about the type and quality of education which they felt was necessary in this country. And today, once again, we have the ministry looking to review the system of education in Guyana. What I would like you to do is to look at what has been the kind of pattern over those years and the need for this kind of review on our system of education. Over to you, Dr. Perry.
Thank you. Good morning. Forbes Bonham did one very significant thing with regard to education. I would say that was when he abolished fees from nursery to the tertiary level, and also when he took over a number of schools that were run by various denominations, religious denominations. What Forbes Bonham did with the nationalization, for want of a better word, of the school system was to give every citizen, every Guyanese citizen, the opportunity to receive an education. Previously, opportunities in education were limited to the people who had above the primary level at the secondary level, people who had the ability to pay more or less. Um, there were very few secondary schools, uh, all fee paying, with the exception probably at that time Queen's College. Um, but if your parents didn't have the money, secondary education was only a dream as far as some people or most Guyanese young people were concerned. Um, but with the nationalization of the system and the abolition of fees from nursery to the tertiary level gave many ambitious young people the opportunity to develop themselves and to attend secondary school and receive a secondary education. But in doing so, that particular opportunity brought with itself numerous problems because mass education, as it became known as mass education, where everyone, regardless of their social background, could have attended school, had several difficulties that were not anticipated. Previously, when opportunity was limited to parents' ability to pay, in many cases, what went on in the school was quite similar to what went on in the home. And the teachers at school got support from parents in those days with regard to the education of the young people. The value system that operated in the school, which was more or less a middle class value system, was reinforced or supported in the home because many of those students who attended secondary school were coming from homes that had a similar value system as the teachers in the school. But when the system expanded and you had young people with all kinds of backgrounds and varying value systems, that in itself created a lot of difficulty for the teachers in the school. And as for the relevance of the curriculum, because everybody was being force-fed on the same middle-class curriculum, which was not necessarily the best thing for persons who were coming from a background that had not prepared them for school. We have to remember that the educational institutions are, by and large, middle-class institutions. And young children have to be prepared to enter this middle-class institution because in many cases the environment is alien to what they have been accustomed to. And when they arrive in school, they suffer from what we might call a culture shock. And in many cases become alienated. And this is responsible for a lot of the failure to complete schooling, to drop out, and the whole host of problems that are known to affect schooling today. So I would really confine most of my comments to the problems that had developed as a regards of mass education. The intention was good to give everyone the opportunity to develop themselves, but not everyone knew at that stage of the game that these problems would have arisen.
All right, I want to come in here and ask you very frankly. Forbes Burnham, under his administration, he introduced concept like the community schools, like you said, that the concept in terms of bringing about this mass education approach brought with it a number of problems. But it was a multifaceted approach in terms of providing education for the less fortunate in the various communities. We have moved to a stage where you had the multilateral schools, you had the community schools. Now again, I don't know what is it that went wrong within this period of it, having these various systems and schools operating as against the need for them having to now review the system. I would like you to really make some comments on that.
Well, first, as you mentioned, community schools and multilateral schools, the idea was good. As a matter of fact, the idea of the multilateral school is still a good one because a lot of people may not realize, but even Queen's College was, as far as I'm concerned, a multilateral school. I learned woodwork, I learned agriculture, I learned beekeeping, I learned many different things. They were industrial arts, technical drawing, and things like that. So even though Queen's College uses, they like to describe Queen's College as a grammar school, it was multifaceted as far as the development of the student was concerned. You had opportunity to learn a number of things besides the academics, you know. And now I must make a little bit of digression by referring to another profession. Let's take the medical profession. At one stage during the medical profession, people believed in many superstitions and many kinds of gods or whatnot in order to cure certain diseases, you know. But as medical science, as the practice of medicine developed into a science and cause and effect, there was established the
Beliefs.
causes of various diseases, you know. It was no longer a hit or miss or stab in the dark kind of affair. Similarly with education. Education is a field of study in its own right. You can no longer claim to know about education because you taught for so many years, or you were an inspector of school for so many years, or a superintendent, or whatever it is, for so many years. You have to make a study of education in order to solve problems.
Correct.
Right? Now, the general practitioner in medicine, you have a general practitioner or a family doctor who examines you, and if need to consult a specialist, he will refer you to the ear, nose, and throat specialist or whatever it is. Similarly, in education, the general practitioner in education is the curriculum specialist. And the curriculum specialist is the person who would identify what is needed. Like if you what kind of textbooks or what kind of evaluation system. So he calls on the evaluation expert. Any difficult learning difficulties, he calls on the psychologist. Any difficulties with regards to, say, environment, home background, he refers the sociology of education developed as a result of the study of that. You see, so all these various areas, you know, are necessary. You have to have an idea of the effect of all these various on the delivery of education. So, and this is what is wrong with the system today. We do not have, as far as I am aware, too many people who have made a specialist study of education. I mean, we have a lot of people with a diploma in education, which is the entry level, so to speak. And then we go on to the Masters of Education, which is, in a sense, gives you a little more or in depth. If you want to be a head teacher or something like that, you have a better grip of what are the problems and so on in education. But then you become like a doctor of education. You are a specialist in problem solving. The doctor, as opposed to the PhD, is different. A PhD is a person who knows more and more about less and less. But the doctor of education is the person who knows.
It's a wider
Yeah.
scope of all-embracing approach.
And the person who can address the problems because of this wider perspective.
I want to comment here because I think what, in your view, based on what you have just said, some teachers and headmasters who have in school sometimes and other operators in education feel that they have taught for a number of years and they feel that they know. And you are now pointing out that to understand what needs to be done, there is need to explore all the various areas that embraces education so that you can get a deliver to the student to facilitate this person who you're trying to mold to be to get the kind of education that you think. I remember Dr. Dennis Irving, the former chancellor of the university. Dennis Irving said in one of his presentations that the real purpose of education is to help the individual, in this case he was talking to students, to develop programs and activities that can help the student to develop his or her full potential.
So
He said that in essence
that is
the
it.
underlining factor.
That is it. Every student who enters school comes with talent, potential. The job of the teacher and the school is to present the kinds of opportunities that would challenge each of those talents that the youngster has every day, or at least so many days per week, because not only the ability to read and write, but the ability to sing, psychomotor, to to do athletic things. You know, that's like interpersonal relationships. How I get on with you, knowing your strengths and weaknesses. These are various abilities or talents that each individual has, but only to different degrees. But our school system caters only for the literacy and numeracy
Numeracy
yeah.
skills, right.
But all the others are neglected because, you know, I believe this is why Queen's College was such a successful school. You had the games program, the physical activity program or the extracurricular activities were well developed. Only recently, now since QC has become co-ed, you see a decline in that.
Who
But
do you think is responsible for that?
well, I don't want to. I personally feel that a lot of the teachers who eventually came to teach at Queen's College did not have that kind of experience when they were students themselves, and so could not do it for the students when they became teachers. It wasn't there. That's not the way. That was not part of their experience. I could remember when I went in Canada and I was teaching at a certain school, I attempted to teach cricket because there were a lot of persons from countries that played cricket who were in the school. And the headmaster wanted to know why I want to do that. I said, well, you know, when I was a boy at school,
You played
I had
cricket.
teachers that did it for me.
Okay.
Yeah. So you know, it's a question of one's experience. If you haven't been exposed, it's hardly likely that you could see the value of it. But right now, in England, it was discovered that physical activity translates into better classroom achievement. And so in England, at a primary level at least, I'm sure, before the formal school curriculum begins, you have a supervised period of physical activity.
Okay.
Every single primary school has got that. So much so now the Americans are copying that, you know. But we don't have it here. You look at schools like St. Ambrose, no playground. Comenius, no playground. St. Sidwell, no playground.
Brickdam Secondary.
Smith's Church, no playground. Brickdam Secondary, no playground. Border, no playground. And you know, we cannot yet see that when the child comes to school, we are responsible for the total development, the holistic development of the child. Not just to have that child with a bundle of energy. I give you experience with my grandson. When I returned from England after doing my master's, I was teaching at the Secondary Teachers College in Kingston, which is now entered.
Yeah.
And driving along Carifesta Avenue, Mays Secondary School was at Legionnaires in those days.
Okay.
And I saw the kids running about, having fun. My grandson was at St. Margaret's. I went and I took him out from St. Margaret's and took him to Mays, strictly because there were activities for physical opportunity for physical education, but there was none at St. Margaret's.
Okay.
You see, so you know, and I had no regrets. Today he's a doctor. See, so
Wonderful. I wonder, the Minister of Education, the current Minister of Education, Dr.
Ryan.
Rupnarayan, is very passionate about this COI so that he can have a premise upon which to launch this new approach to education. One of the areas that I have noticed, not in my time, but I've noticed that it appears if it's the fashion now where you do a multiplicity of subjects, some people writing 22 subjects, 21 subjects in school. I want to hear your comment on this matter of all these subjects being written now at CXC
Well,
and so on.
what time does the child have for other activities?
Yeah.
You tell me. Well, I think I did about 8, if I remember, in my day at Queen's College, 8 subjects. But I took part in debating, drama, athletics, as I said, agriculture, woodwork, you name it, I did it. You know, boxing and whatever. But when you do a child, one particular student, though I marveled at, a girl from Anna Regina Multilateral. I think she is now in America at some university. She got 18, I think,
Yeah,
but she was also a karate or a judo.
oh, she did those things.
Yeah, and one wonders whether the physical activity helps her to perform, even though a lot of the subjects were repetitive, but not to take away from her. She did 18 and was involved in other things. Um, but I don't think uh, that we need to subject the young person to that sort of ordeal. I call it an ordeal. Um, if you do 8 subjects or 10 at the most deeply, you go into depth. The idea is to develop thinking, not because a lot of the facts you know today become obsolete tomorrow.
Right.
Right? So the point is, how do we develop the love for learning that these people would want to continue learning throughout their life? How do we teach them how to learn efficiently? And this is where the emphasis should be on promoting the love for learning so that when that child graduates, uh, you know, they will carry on in that tradition, learning, keep learning. And as a matter of fact, the aim of every teacher should be, I know when you come in at first form or so, you have to structure and so on for the child. But as a child grows older, the child should develop a lot of independence from the teacher. The child should become proficient in how to learn. So by the time the child reaches fifth form, you don't need the teacher any longer, right?
All right.
A master, the child or the student has mastered how to learn, and can, when they go to university or tertiary education,
It
they
becomes
know they're on their own, and,
Yes.
and they have mastered how to learn. This is what the job of the aim of the teacher should be, to make themselves redundant, that they're not needed after a certain time.
I want to come. There's no doubt that post-independence or pre-independence, early post-independence, the quality of education in this country was really high. We have progressed a little bit in education. This is my personal view. But in recent years, we seem to have been wavering.
Wobbled.
We get wobbled a little while as far as our education system is
You
concerned.
see, the teaching has become increasingly more difficult. As I said, you don't have the home support anymore, right? Good. That's one factor. The churches or other organizations like YMCA, YWCA, Catholic Youth Organization, those organizations, Sunday School and so on, are no longer influential in the life of young people. Years ago, those organizations helped us to mold the character of the young person, but they're not around today. The various gadgets, television and things, the teacher has to compete now with all those distractions because they, they have cell phones, and instead of paying attention to what the teacher is doing or the lecturer, their face is buried, or the texting, and then even some cases sexting. Yes, and this is what the teacher has to contend. But now, because the situation is so bad, you need a much better teacher. You cannot have a quality education system if you don't have quality teachers. No education system can be better than the quality of the teachers in the system.
I want to interject here again and to say that today you find a lecturer once told me, I think it was at the university, I don't remember her name, a Jamaican woman. She said that to be a teacher is the only kind of profession that touches the future. Well, I didn't understand what it meant then, but I now understand, because she said all the other professions depend
On
on education.
Yeah.
So a teacher really touches the future for those students that they teach. But today you find the ministry in this approach that they're taking now for the review of the system. Teachers themselves have problems. Some people who are assigned teaching jobs are really not just employed but wage earners. They do not display the same characteristic trait that you have just outlined in relation to bringing about this change and development of the student. Could I have your comment?
To begin with, a teacher is should be a special person. You can't teach what you don't know,
Okay.
right?
Yes.
If don't care how good you are in, pampering or whatever it is, if you don't know the content, you cannot teach it. Research has shown that it is better to invest in the education of the teacher than the training of the teacher. It pays more dividends in the end when you have an educated teacher as opposed to a trained teacher. But if you have an educated and trained teacher, so much the better. The thing is that you want to develop a profession, and you want professionals to help you develop that profession. Well, a professional has to undergo a long period of training, of education,
Yes.
followed by training. Right? Same thing in the medical profession. A long period of education followed by training, clinicals or whatnot. The teacher has a more important job than the medical doctor. The medical doctor relies on drugs, pharmaceuticals, and they don't diagnose these days. They write prescriptions, right? Good. I've got to be careful. They write prescriptions, right? Now, the teacher has to contend, as I said, with all the distractions in the environment.
Multiplicity of distractions.
Yes. Whether as a matter of fact, from the time the mother is pregnant, if that mother is not properly nourished, the neural development, the brain development of that child is affected.
Okay.
That's right. So when you have poverty-stricken mothers giving birth to young people, when they go to school, they are deficient in many things, in the amount of neurons to make the kind of connections. They are deficient. Right. So, I got to stick a pin there. It is, I don't know. Anyway,
You talk about the role of the deficiency of people who are born into these kind of depressed communities, malnourished children.
Yeah, I'm talking about the teacher. The teacher has to contend with that. The teacher has to contend with that. The teacher has to contend with TV, the parents, or single parent, or who can't supervise the child at home, and all the various distractions. The teacher has to. But how could you put I don't want to say uneducated, but not a sufficiently educated and trained teacher in that very difficult situation? It is extremely difficult. Therefore, you got to get the best person for the job. But how do you get the best person? Not by paying peanuts. You have to pay teachers a kind of salary that would do a number of things. They don't have I know many students who pass teachers in the way, offer them a lift in their vehicles.
Okay.
Because the teacher either walking or struggling on a bicycle or whatever it is. You know, the student far richer than the teacher. The teachers cannot exist at a standard that is necessary to maintain the respect of their students, right? So that's one. You got now
Yeah,
when you
okay.
pay good salaries, you attract the brighter student now to the profession. You don't want people who can barely make it as teachers. You want bright teachers are more likely to develop brighter students than if the teacher is a dodo.
And it fits into what you said. Those teachers will be able to provide that guidance, say, from the child when he gets into the first form. By the time it reaches fifth form,
That's
become
right.
independent.
That's right.
Because they will be, what you said, skilled. They have been trained as well as educated.
That's right. You see, an educated teacher, if an educated teacher has to teach a concept, because that teacher is educated, that teacher can twist and turn that concept into so many different ways to connect with the students who may be at different levels in front. But a student who is a teacher who's half baked can only regurgitate what
Well,
you can't
What-
twist it or turn it to meet.
What's there in the text?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know,
Okay,
they
okay.
can't put it in a way to make various students understand.
I want to come back because post-independence, Forbes Burnham was very interested in ensuring that as large part of the population, our young people particularly, be exposed to proper education. You quite rightly outlined in those days the school were denominationally owned and much of them had different approaches to education. But when he actually took over these institutions, it was taken over with a direct aim of ensuring that more of our people be exposed to quality education. In some ways we have done well, and in other ways we have not done so well. And it's, like I said, over the past few years, decades, we have kind of wobbled in relation, because at one time we were recognized as a top education country in the Caribbean, and it looked as if we have wobbled a little bit. And I want to know, now that the minister has addressed this issue of saying that he wants a review of the system, what are your views which you think ought to come out of this kind of review?
Well, I am a sort of a maverick when it comes to. I believe that we need more than a review. Now, I want to read something that appeared in the Ghana Review, Rethinking Education in the Caribbean. This was written by Dr. Didicus Jules, who was one time registrar at CXC there.
University of West Indies.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he said, our education systems no longer serve the region well. Tinkering with the system no longer works. A new vehicle for human empowerment and social transformation is needed. We need something new. The education, what we have to realize, that the education that we have came out of the need to pacify slaves when they were
Rebellious.
when they were freed.
Freed,
Remember,
okay.
yeah, in 1834 or whatever it
34,
was, Reverend Sterling cautioned that with 700,000 slaves, I think it was, about to be released, something has to be done to sort of control them. And out of that, schooling was developed. You know, we have a school system. We don't have an education system, you know. Education system is when you develop the talents that each individual has to the fullest.
All right.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's when you educate and you're drawing out, right? but we have a system where people go to school. Yeah, and not necessarily being educated. They're filled with ideas. Sometimes I go so far that they're indoctrinated because the the um, the things that they learn are not really relevant for development. There's some things you don't want to throw the baby with the bathwater. I mean, there's some things, literacy and numeracy, etc. But the education, that the content, the curriculum could be more relevant. We need a curriculum that will give us the kind of citizen that is gung ho to do the things that will develop Guyana.
Dr. Irvin himself made that point in the presentation I recall he made then. The same thing you said.
Yeah. You know, we don't have that. We have a set of pacifists or whatever you call them, and we educate for export. They don't want to come back here. Once they get an opportunity to leave Guyana, they seldom return. So our education is irrelevant. We need, and that's the reason why the country has not developed like it should. The people who are left here, who are not the creme de la creme, that get all the scholarships or go overseas or whatnot, the people who are left here are the people who have been shortchanged, sent to dead-end schools, etc., and they are left here to fill the various positions to develop this. Well, how could the country develop like that? You need to retain your bright people. You must give them the kind. How many students here know the interior?
Good question.
Yeah, how many?
Mm-hmm. That's true. I
Yeah,
realize
how
that
many know
myself.
the interior? The interior is beautiful, you know. But there's nothing here during the vacations that, let's say, a set of children could be taken to know the interior on tours or nothing like that. As far as fact, there is no imagination. There's no imagination. Our education could be exciting, but the imagination for people to do. Well, when I was QC, I was supervisor of the tour club. We walk before the Linden Highway from Atkinson Field in those days through Ituni to Linden, walking, carrying our own food through the sun. We went to Kaichor.
As part of a school exercise.
Yes.
Okay.
You know, and I am not the only teacher that done that. There are other supervisors of the tour club who took students out of the place. You know, but we need an education system that is challenging. We need an education system that facilitates creativity, imagination. You know, but what happens? A youngster from home comes to the school very creative in his own way. In the school, blam, sit down, kills creativity. By the time you reach second form, third form, 85% of your creativity is gone.
All right, I want to tell our viewers that I have with me Dr. Clarence Perry in the studio today. We are discussing education. You know that this is a Forbes Burnham Foundation program. Forbes Burnham was the first education minister of Guyana. Of course, he has made a significant contribution towards education. We will be opening the lines in another 5 minutes or so, where we'll be asking viewers, those of you who are listening to the program, you'll be given an opportunity to make your contributions, ask questions, make comments, and possibly a recommendation. I want to come back to you, Dr. Perry. The minister, Dr. Rupert Rupnarayan, has said that he is very passionate about ensuring that this new system, like you are demanding, I notice you two are very passionate about education, is all embracing and can bring about this much needed push to our students, our young people, that will make them stand out, not just in Guyana, but the world altogether, in greater numbers, not just a 1% at the top and those dropping out the cracks. And one of the first things he said, he cannot do anything unless he know what he has, what the system is there, and that is one of the reasons why he has commissioned this commission of inquiry. I know you're saying that, what are your expectations of this commission?
Well, I don't expect that much. I could see Dr. Rupnarayan's approach in that I think he's a consensus builder. The mere fact that I read where he consulted with previous ministers of education,
Okay.
and education is a national thing and it can't be partisan. So his
Right.
approach, I give him full marks.
Full marks.
Yeah, for the approach in
Approach he's
building a
taking.
concept. Yeah,
Okay.
and to get everybody on board.
Mhm.
But we don't have time. Time is not on our side. And I would have taken although I am one of the first advocates, one
Go
of the
ahead.
first advocates to call for commission inquiry since the last government. Yeah. But I have come on reflection. We don't have, this coalition government doesn't have too much time. People are very impatient. Yeah.
They have to be on the double.
They have to give the people something to hold on, to shout about. Because a lot of people are asking, what is there to celebrate? I would have done my thing a different way. For instance, I noticed that they have advertised for building 3 general secondary schools. Now, as far as I'm concerned, do we know what the curriculum is going to be? How are you going to build a functional general secondary school unless you know what the curriculum is going to be? How are you going to cater for the delivery of the curriculum? We need to do first things first. First, we need to decide what education to do for Guyana. What are the purposes? What are the functions of education? And then we need to develop a curriculum capable of delivering on those functions and purposes.
Okay.
Now, when we develop the curriculum that is capable to develop those, then we can design buildings to deliver the curriculum. Then we know the kind of teachers. We know the curriculum first has to be taken to the teacher in training institution, because the teacher is who got to deliver the curriculum. The teacher has to be made familiar with that curriculum. So the first place you're going to take that curriculum is to the teacher's college or the faculty of education, wherever they're educating teachers. This is the curriculum, and you can iron out the bugs and whatnot where that is concerned. And then one of the recommendations I made some time ago is for teachers not to depend upon textbooks. Teachers can develop their own textbooks, use portfolios, encourage the children to use portfolios, update your portfolio every week or whatever it is, and you inculcate. When you go for promotion, bring your portfolio so you can show the interview board of what you have done. And yet, this is the kind of thing that we need to develop. Resilience, reliance, self-reliance, stand on our own 2 feet. We have lots of content here that we can develop challenging curriculum. I not say that we don't have to use outside information, resource. Well, we put them in the resource library. In case we need to refer or follow up on something, see how somebody else has done it, there's a resource library. But we should not be depending upon other teachers' experience, because a lot of textbook writers are teachers writing their notes, etc., and produce textbooks on that. Why our teachers can't do that?
Okay, I want to tell our viewers that the lines are now open and you can make your call, you can make your comments and so on. Morning, you're on the air.
Morning, sir.
Morning, sir.
I have one contribution to make.
Yes, please.
When I look at the background of the stadium, your whatever, where you sit in there,
Yes.
Mr. Fox Burnham, and the whole entire, the looks of it, right? I see suffering in this country, but I remember days back,
Turn it up a little bit.
that's all.
But you remember what?
That's all what I'm seeing. I'm seeing suffering, punishment, years back. I hope it didn't happen again.
I want to tell you that what this program is geared to bring to the fore is that Forbes Burnham, as the first Minister of Education, has made a contribution towards education. His policies has impacted on our people to a large extent, where if you travel this region and further afield, you would realize that there are lots of Guyanese who are holding down senior posts in various parts of the world, and that is as a result of the policy that he has put in place in relation to educating our people. So what you are kind of remembering doesn't have anything to do with what the kind of contribution that he has made. Morning, you're on the air.
Yes, good morning.
Morning, sir.
Good morning to
Dr. Perry.
Dr. Perry.
Yes.
And I want to see what Mr. Perry is talking about, and the things about what happened in Guyana are not written in any book.
Okay.
It's in my head, it's in Mr. Perry's head, and I'm talking about I was 11 years old in 1966.
Yes.
And that is when I went in Queen's College. Mr. Perry was one of my teachers, and I'm telling you, there isn't a man in this country or outside this country can talk stupidness to me as the 11-year-old I was then, when I was 12, when I was 13, when I was 14, when I was 15, about what happened in this country and what was going on. Because it was total knowledge. Every single thing that transpired out of the government was total knowledge. And then no person like that person speaks to us or anybody else in PP, and PR, US, or anybody can talk stupidness to me. And from what Mr. Perry says, to him either, because I was there and I was 11 years old, and I'm telling you, I couldn't talk stupidness to Mr. Perry or any of the other teachers in Queen's College. I had to be sharp because you were respected as a sovereign when you went into Queen's College and as a person who expected to be intelligent.
And to behave in a certain way.
You are 11 years old. This is 11 years old, you know.
Okay.
And you were responsible for every single action that you made in Queen's College. And
Well-
so I am telling you, I was so conscious, there is no one in this country. That's why I am the man who came back and talked about Burnham. When people first started 20 years, I am the man. And no one in this country answers me, and they wouldn't call me on any program and debate me about anything in this country that they speak, because it's all lies that they talk. And this 11-year-old would make them look small because they don't know what they're saying.
Yeah,
Now,
I
Perry talk about the youth touring. How can they tour now? There's no national service. Where are they going to go? Everything Bonham did, and I'm a person who was never in the PNC, never in anything, and I'm telling you, 1985 was going back to join Bonham, and Bonham never had to tell me about what he was doing. I was so intelligent, and I'm telling you, my first farmers, now that I look back, is now I know how intelligent we were. My first farmers could have been ministers in those days. I am telling you that.
all right.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much.
Good to see you, Mr. Perry, and good to see you in good health.
All right. Okay. Doc, a response.
Could you repeat it?
He said that he attended Queen's College, that you taught him, and the things that you have outlined in relation to what obtains then. He said students at Queen's College, even first and second form, can be ministers say for today because they were exposed to every aspect of education that was necessary in the school to make them functional effectively in the society. That's what he said. Morning, you're on the air.
Good morning.
Morning, sir.
One thing I have a problem with
Yes.
today.
Today, yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if Mr. Bonham was wrong right now. He might be able to solve it, but I think right now the teachers, they're not paying enough attention. They're not doing enough for maths. Students,
Right now, where you're saying that the teachers are not paying attention to maths.
yeah, they're not paying enough attention. They're not doing enough for the math students.
Okay.
Students are failing maths too often. I think that we need to probably start importing teachers or something, because apparently the teachers don't got it in the head that they don't got, and they don't care how the students them get, right? And I think we need to get rid of them teachers who can tell the students that I already got what I got.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thanks for your contribution. Doc,
Well, I didn't get to say in my presentation one important thing about science education. Research has shown that teachers who have a background in the sciences make better mathematical teachers than people who just study straight maths. And this is recent research done in England. I have advocated, and if I may be allowed to read just one thing here.
Let me take this call by then.
Okay.
Yeah, morning on here.
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
My deepest concern is about the changes that was made for the common entrance children supposed to be sitting common entrance and in a few more days from now. The sudden changes.
The
very
sudden
difficult
changes.
for the children.
Mm-hmm.
That is my deepest concern. I mean, the changes could be good, yes, but the short moment that the changes was made.
What are the changes you're talking about?
Whereby the children have to fill up this form with the date of birth. There's not the serial, but now it's a conduct number, and the whole cover was changed, and these are the stuff.
Well, you are. There isn't anything strange. I saw an article somewhere in the paper where people were saying that students have to put their names on these course subjects that they're writing for the common entrance. My understanding from what the Ministry of Education statement has said is that each of these core kind of subjects has two papers. The first paper is electronically marked. The second one has a section on the top page on your right hand side which is perforated. The student has to complete that, and then that will be extracted. So the student name is not going for any marker to know who the student is. So
I understand what you're saying, but when it comes to things like date of birth, there are those children that are very slow. Some children don't even know the date of birth, and they're preparing to write. Not to say they're preparing to write common entrance.
What?
Don't know the date of birth. Now the teachers now have to come back now and teach the children the date of birth. Written inside the children focusing on catching up on whatever they don't know.
All right.
They have to focus on learning the date of birth and these things.
all right, thank you. Dr. Perry, you want to respond to that?
No, well,
A student writing common entrance doesn't know the date of birth.
Ever since 1976, I campaigned against this common entrance or whatever it was called. I would have abolished it ever since. I think it's creates a lot of social injustice. You're going to ask a child coming from an first class home and one coming from Plastic City to jump the same academic hurdle at the same time. I think is unfair. I don't even bother to think about it. Yeah.
All right, the lines are still open. We have a few minutes more, and those of you who have been with us on the program, you are free to make your comments, call in, make your comments, contribution, question, whatever. You want to say something?
Yeah, I want to
okay.
say something.
All right.
I have advocated that we turn the curriculum upside down and make the core a science core and everything else. When I did my master's, I did something like that. I had biological sciences as the core and showed links to various different areas of the curriculum. But our people are so dyed-in-the-wool British that it hasn't caught on. I want to read something that happened 150 years ago when Britain lost her preeminence in the industrial world.
Okay.
She lost out to France and Germany. A gentleman by the name of Sir Julian Huxley said, he was in the Select Committee on Scientific Instruction in England, and he said in a similar situation, my conception is that our present system of education should be turned upside down. The thing you have to do is to make the foundation science and literature the superstructure. But Oxford and Cambridge and the classics, because of the church was against, the Church of England was against science. They were anti-science. And Oxford and Cambridge took their cue from the Church of England. But this is what is responsible for our scientific and technological backwardness in the Caribbean. The fact that we are only going for the classics, the subjects that produce lawyers, but not the subjects that produce experts for agriculture or something like that.
I follow you.
Or forestry, nothing.
Yes. Yeah, I think what I listened to carefully to what the minister said at the launch of the commission of inquiry, and he is hopeful, from what I've deduced from what the pronouncements he made, he is hopeful that having conducted this, when this COI is completed, he will be able to have a premise upon which he can hopefully effectively
Well, I
bring
hope
about
so.
the-
He said in the press that the recommendations of the COI will be implemented. But the COI report would only be as good as the commission of the commission is. You know, if the commission itself is not up to the real task, the recommendations, I don't see what the recommendations will be worth.
There is a document, as far as I understand, which has not yet, I think, is the strategy, some education strategy document, which has been prepared. And he has said that there are things there that they would not like to dispose of, but what will have to be changed will be, what should be retained will be retained.
I agree. You
But the
don't
whole
throw
idea is-
you don't throw the baby with the bathwater.
Yeah.
They're good things, but then again, we need science. This is a scientific area. Science and technology rule the world. Ideas in science and technology, what rule the world? We still hustling with literature and history. We should make the core of the curriculum science, technology, and a few other things, mathematics, for one, the environment, and society. As far as I'm concerned, excuse me, I will build my curriculum around those areas. And
The
I will,
president was saying that he needs engineers, he needs
yes, but
people in
the
the
point
various
is
areas.
this: the point is we also need to modify the structure. We need to modify the entire structure in the system of education. For instance, we're talking about transformation of the university, but we're not addressing what happens at the secondary level. How can we affect the best transformation at the university without addressing articulation between tertiary and secondary level education? The secondary level will now have to take off some of the strain from the tertiary level to allow the tertiary level to give us the expertise, the experts that we need in the society. But the people are not seeing education as a total thing. They're looking at tertiary as one sector, and they're looking at secondary as a separate sector, and they're looking at primary as a. That's not the way. You have to look at it in its
Holistically.
entirety.
I want to say to our viewers that time is now running out, time has run out, but I want to remind our viewers, with me today in the studio is Dr. Clarence Perry, very passionate person in the area of education. In fact, he's ably qualified as well. I refer to him as an education specialist. And from his CV, which I could not have read today, is a whole sheet of paper with a number of areas that he has been exposed to. And I want to sincerely thank him for accepting the request to be on studio today with me to discuss this whole idea about education. I want to remind our viewers that this program by the Burnham Foundation is geared towards ensuring that the legacy of Forbes Burnham is kind of promoted and maintained. It is geared towards providing our people with education on things that are necessary in the society and the state so that they can relate to what happens to them on an everyday basis. Dr. Perry, I know our time has run out, but it's limited. We have been limited. I haven't touched a number of areas which he had wanted to address, but I would like to invite you to say your final comments because we're out of time.
Well, my final comment is the Commission of Inquiry. I would have developed something and put it out there and get the reaction of the various stakeholders that we are now talking at the various sessions. Give them something to comment on, but don't wait for them to tell you what to do. You do it and let them comment on it, and then you smooth off the edges or whatever it is. That's my final comment. I would
All right. I want to thank our viewers, those of you who have allowed us in your kitchen, bathrooms, your bedrooms, and so on, listening to this program. Until the next fourth Sunday of next month, this is Clayton Hines saying thank you and see you next month, the fourth Sunday.